Since he was a child, his dream was to be a hero in another world, and he spent his whole life studying to achieve it. Now, Taro has drawn a magic circle in his room. He added a drop of ketchup to it. He even used his stuffed animal as a sacrifice in the ritual. At this rate, he's going to end up teleporting to the world of Hello Kitty. At first, he thought it hadn't worked, but then someone named Han started to emerge from the magic circle and grabbed him. When he opened his eyes again, a guy with a beard was asking him what kind of stupid thing he had done. The dumb, ugly kid didn't understand a thing. That's when the old man, who is actually God, showed him. The 21 year minus old boy named Taro had died. They found him in his room, suffering from a severe lack of being alive. That's what happens when you try to compete with Truck minus Gun. The guy can't believe he actually died, but at least his magic worked. God reveals that Earth never taught magic to humans, and it's crazy that he discovered it on his own. But it turns out the circle he drew wasn't for travel, but for reincarnation. On top of that, he messed up by not specifying the destination or purpose. Realizing he had screwed up, he now has to change his plan. So he asks God for a second chance to reincarnate. He's always been excited about other worlds, but God tells him, nah, reincarnation has been off the table for years, thanks to the new soul recycling law that just came back. Basically, using reincarnation magic is a self-destruct button, and the fate of those people is always a disaster, like being born and dying immediately, or ending up as slaves. You could even come back as a beast, or worse, an insect. For him, anything is fine, except being an insect. Still, he's curious about special skills. God says they exist in his world, but they're not a big deal. Still, Taro begs for one. The old man explains they're useful, but hard to activate, and that's enough for him to keep insisting. The old man thinks it over and says, maybe, since you're the first to reincarnate after the ban, are you really willing? Taro accepts without hesitation. There's no turning back now. The old man says, before you get excited, let's get something straight. All your memories of your past life will be erased. Hearing this, his hopes plummet, and the old man says, I told you, no favoritism. Taro asks if even this conversation will be erased. The old man replies, yep, everything is erased before reincarnation. No cheating. With that, his spirits hit rock bottom. He just says maybe I'll at least get a basic skill. Suddenly, a system window appears before him, while lights start flying toward him. Next scene, we're somewhere else. And those lights in the sky? They're heading toward him at Evil City, traveling across all sorts of places. Meanwhile, in an alley, some people are beating someone up. A blonde guy says, this guy has nothing worth stealing. That light reaches the boy right then. He wakes up. He opens his eyes, and the thugs run off. But the boy is about to pass out again. Just as he's about to close his eyes, that's when the stolen system skills activate. He recovers his memories. The boy on the ground says, now I remember everything. If it weren't for the system stability, I'd be toast. Still, he's in a tough spot. Basically, he hasn't done anything in this world yet. He already has all his memories. There's no way he's dying here. His name is Taro, and in his past life, he was also named that. And look, during a baptism ceremony at age 6, it was revealed he had a super confusing skill. So his father, a complete disaster, just abandoned him in a forest full of monsters. That's why he escaped to a large city called Sei, which was a few days' journey from his village. The city was full of life, like a viral TikTok video. But it also had its dark side with all the outcasts. Life was a huge struggle. Taro scratches his head. So in this world, there's really only one option. In the next scene, boom, we're somewhere else. Taro is wandering through the city. He sees a knight. But wait, there's something even cooler up ahead. It's the Adventurers Guild he always dreamed of. Super excited, he runs to see it. But he's immediately surrounded by some people. They tell him, this is the Adventurers Guild, so get lost. Taro replies, I didn't come looking for trouble. Then someone grabs his shirt, not letting him go. But a girl appears and says, calm down, there's no need for violence. That wild guy drags Taro to a table. The girl joins them, explaining that the guy is just trying to keep others from bothering him. Taro, grateful, thinks he's finally found a decent human being. He says, I want to register too. The girl replies, I hate to tell you this, but it costs money. Hearing that, Taro's hopes sink. He has no way to register, but he's curious about the price. The girl says it costs 10 silver coins, but Taro's pockets are empty. He'd love to register, even if he had to beg, but he's in a tight spot. Besides, he has no ID because he ran away. But the guy tells him, don't worry, I'll pay for it. Taro's jaw drops at the guy's kindness. Meanwhile, some adventurers are laughing, betting that Taro will bail after registering. But Mav says, that's the idea. They're betting that Taro will work hard to pay back the 10 silver coins. The adventurers think it's a stupid bet, but Mav goes all in on Taro. With the bets placed, Taro thinks Mav is a good guy despite the name. He bows, thanking him for everything. But Mav says, don't get the wrong idea. As Mav leaves, the girl explains that he was also an orphan. He became an adventurer after a hard life. So they proceed with the registration, and she introduces herself as Nai, asking him to touch a magic crystal. Suddenly, the whole guild lights up. His skill appears on paper, but it's pure gibberish. His skill is called garbled text. Taro asks, what is that? Nai explains that skills are usually clear, like if he were a spearman or a seamstress. If he practices enough, he'll unlock cool abilities. The voice of the world will guide him. Taro's mind reels hearing about this voice of the world. Nai says it's like the heavens guiding everyone toward their skills. Taro wonders if it's the same voice he heard when he almost died and remembered his past life. Nai says that with garbled text, he has no clear path, but trying different things might help. Taro stands up, fired up, ready to give it his all. The receptionist tells him to wait a moment. Looking at the machine, Taro thinks it looks like an old-minus fashion camera. The girl is fiddling with it. Taro still doesn't quite understand the device. She keeps tinkering with it. Then she hands him a pendant saying it's his guild ID. He's starting from the bottom. He has to wear it around his neck. Hearing this, Taro does as he's told, ready to begin. She says, let me explain how the Adventurers Guild works. They have a ranking system that starts from the lowest level. The lowest rank is G, then F, and so on. Our hero thinks, wow, it's going to be tough to level up. The guild girl says if you reach a high rank, boom, you're elite. The highest rank is S. But be warned, any crime is recorded on your tag, and you're kicked out of the guild, no questions asked. Plus, they'll hand you over to the guards even for a minor offense. There are a lot of adventurers out there, but most follow the rules, so don't worry. Taro thinks these guys look tough, but they're actually pretty chill. After all this boring talk, Taro is eager to start a quest. Nai tells him, easy there, kid. She says, it's lunchtime, and to celebrate you joining, it's my treat. In the next scene, time flies by. She serves a plate to our hero. Since he was reincarnated, he's been starving, so he's ready to devour it. Without wasting a second, he starts to eat, and his eyes fill with tears. Thinking, damn, this is delicious. She watches him as he eats Ravensway. Meanwhile, she says, did you grow up in a wealthy family? You have good manners? If it's a sensitive topic, you don't have to tell me. Taro replies, nah, just a poor farming family, and mom died when I was a baby. At age 6, he left his father's house because he was planning to abandon him in the forest. Nai asks, was it to have one less mouth to feed? And he replies, probably. His father used to beat him, so there's not much love there. In short, getting to the city was brutal. He faced a ton of monsters on the way. It seemed like there was no way out of that hell. But somehow he got lucky and reached the city. He finally made it to Seiyai, yet no one was kind to a weakling like him. He was always fighting for scraps, living in the misery of that cursed place, barely surviving day to day. But thanks to this meal, life is getting a little better, and he'll be able to hold on for a few more days. In the next scene, time passes again. Someone calls for the guild receptionist. It's Taro, saying he's finished with the cleaning task. The receptionist tells him, there's a well out back, clean yourself up, and here are some clothes. The boy pays attention. He finds the well to wash up. There's no time to lose. Suddenly someone says, hey, you're a weakling. He turns to see who's talking. A bearded guy is there, saying he smells horrible. Our hero gets angry and says, "You stink too." And the bearded guy says, "Say that again. I dare you." He looks and smells like he hasn't bathed in years. His clothes are all dirty, so he says, "Whatever, let's heat up this water." He tells the boy to hurry up and take a bath. Hearing this, our hero relaxes, thinking, this guy is actually pretty cool. Next scene. The guy is heating water for Taro, who wonders how on earth he'll do it. And suddenly, bam, he has fire magic in his hand. And is heating the water. Well, now that's magic. And the water starts to get warm. The bearded man says, "Get in, quick." Taro thinks it's his first bath in ages. Out of nowhere, the bearded man grabs him and dunks him in the water, helping him scrub. Obviously, he's not bathing alone. Moments later, our hero is clean and says he feels so much better. Just then, a system voice appears saying his special skills have activated, and because he completed the body cleansing mission, he now has the purification spell. The other guy asks, "What's wrong?" And our hero replies, "I just heard the voice of the world and learned the purification skill." The guy says the secret to learning that spell must have been the bath. And Taro asks, "Does it change depending on the person?" The bearded man nods and says, "Yeah, same skill, different paths. And sometimes it's pure talent." One way to master fire spells is by simply lighting a fire. And the trick to learning anything is trying different things. But our hero got the purification spell. He's totally shocked to get such a rare skill like that. Hearing this, the boy's mind is blown, wondering if that spell is really so epic. Then the guy gives him some clothes. Kero says, "Thanks, but I don't need all this. I'm going to bathe by myself, so see." Scene change and Taro is choosing his next quest. But then the guild manager tells him, "Hey, the guild master wants to talk to you." He's totally confused. He thinks, why would someone so important want to talk to me? Next scene, he's in front of the master's door asking if he can come in. He enters and, surprise, it's the same bearded old man from before. The girl whispers for him to be respectful because he's the boss. So the hero bows, thanking him for earlier. But the man waves him off and tells him to sit down. Changing the subject, he mentions that Nai said Taro is broken homeless, so he has a proposal. The guild has a spare room with a bed, and Taro can stay there for now. In return, he must help with cleaning and assist Nai and the guild staff. And yes, he'll get paid to. Hearing this, our hero is in shock and asks if the guild master is really okay with it. The man says Nai has been asking for it, and it's the least they can do because even though I've lent him the money, he's still an adventurer at heart. If he leaves without paying his debt, it'll damage the guild's reputation, so he has to act like a real adventurer. Looking at the boy, it seems he took a good hit to the head. They offer to heal him in the infirmary with magic. Carol leaves, and the man comments that, just as Nyan Mob said, there's something special in that boy's eyes. Even though the garbled text skill has its downsides, at least it'll help him survive. Next scene, Taro is resting in his room, saying he finally has a bed again. He throws himself onto it, determined to give it his all the next day. The night flies by, and the groggy boy says, "Damn, I overslept." He apologizes to Nai for oversleeping. She tells him not to worry. Change of pace, our boy gets to work, starting by cleaning the entire guild hall. Seeing the staff busy, he asks if they need help, and another guy says, "There's plenty, but can you even read?" Taro says, "I can read, write, and do math, so if it's just simple record minus keeping, I can handle it." Hearing that, the whole guild freezes, right after someone approaches Nai, super surprised, asking if he can really do all that, begging for his help. Meanwhile, the adventurers can't believe this kid knows how to read, because some of them can't even count to 10. Scene change, and Taro says he didn't do any quests that day, so there was no income. His life has been chaotic since he started staying at the guild. He's been working non-stop day and night on guild chores, with no time to rest. He takes on escort quests for beginners during the day, and is already used to how tough it is. He's done a ton of them. In just 2 weeks, he paid off his debt to Mom. Finally, he hands him the money, thanking him for everything. But Moff tells him, "No need to thank me, and those who bet that Taro wouldn't pay up, you better get square." Alright, buckle up, because this story is about to level up. So the adventurers, yeah, they were not happy with that plan. And suddenly, Mauve is rolling in money, all thanks to the kid, and says this kid is the real MVP. Then Nai shows up saying, hey, it's payday. And she wonders why Enro doesn't use that money for himself. Taro struts, saying he's rank G now, so he has to treat himself a little. Once he hits rank F, he can go hunt for epic herbs in the forest, or get unicorn hairs. No big deal. So he thinks he should get a knife while he has the money. He goes on a serious shopping spree. Scene change. We're in the middle of the city center. Taro thinks shopping in his world was boring. But here, it's another level. He sees a shop and says, I bet this is the shop they were talking about. Nai had told him to buy bigger clothes because kids grow like weeds. Does he need a breastplate? And a cloak to stay dry. And with that, he's all set. So he grabs his gear and heads to the weapons shop. Nai has connections because she knows an epic shop. It's run by dwarves, which is insane because he's never seen one before. Humans are common in this city, so this is a big deal. He's met beastmen at the Adventurers Guild, but dwarves? This is a first. He enters the shop and stares at the weapons, totally amazed. But where's the shopkeeper? From the other side of the shop, someone asks if he's a customer, telling him to relax and look at whatever he wants. Our boy does, but it's taking forever and he thinks, is this guy busy or what? Finally, he sees the dwarf, and the dwarf says, you're a customer? Huh? Coming closer, he asks Taro if he's a kid. Changing the subject, Taro asks if he's going to temper that sword. The dwarf is confused and says, what do you mean? Taro admits he's no expert, but he heard that if you strike hot iron and douse it with water, it gets stronger. The dwarf says, first time I'm hearing that, but it sounds smart, though I'm worried it'll ruin the iron. The dwarf keeps looking at the forge. He says there are things on the shelf that might work, and tells Taro to pick one. He's going to give it to him for free as thanks for the tip. Taro is in shock, thinking the dwarf is really eager to try it, so he accepts the generous gift. He tests his moves. He asks the dwarf what he thinks, but the dwarf isn't even paying attention. Taro thinks he's really going to ignore me. As he leaves, he thanks him for the dagger and goes. Next scene, they're at the guild. Nai says that his age, it's fine to choose something flashy like that. Taro says, these clothes are way more comfortable than the old ones. Nai checks the clothes and says the material is decent, and since it was cheap, it's fine. Taro is surprised and asks how she knows that. Nai says, appraisal is my thing, I can use it on objects. The protagonist wonders if she can appraise people. She says she only has part of her skills unlocked, so no, but it's useful for checking loot from quests and avoiding scams from merchants. At first, it only showed the item's name, but now it's very versatile. Taro asks what it takes to appraise people. She says you have to meet certain requirements and that the skill rank matters. For example, if you have an S- rank, you can analyze anything if you meet the conditions. But with a G- rank, you can't appraise people, no way. He heard you can even detect personal talents with S- rank. And Taro thinks, that would help a lot to understand how my skill works. He just got the purification spell and wonders if he could get the garbled text skill in the same way. Nai says, what? You really got that skill? That's healer minus level magic. And she thinks maybe the confusing text skill is also a type of healing magic. She asks if Taro learned the cleansing skill, but Taro says no. Is that bad? Purification is a high minus level healer skill, but you're supposed to learn cleansing first. Another skill on the list is Purge, but somehow, Taro went straight to Purify. So technically, he's not a healer. Taro is just standing there, completely lost in all this skill talk. The girl keeps thinking out loud, saying she's never heard of anything like it. Later, Taro is training. Nai calls him. Taro asks, what's up? She tells him he did great that day and that he's been paid. He's excited because he has a little purchase in mind. But he can't spend it all, so he has to prioritize. Mauve shows up and asks what's wrong because Taro looks excited. But Taro leaves immediately and Mauve says, something's off. Then bam, Taro bumps into someone. It's the guildmaster, who asks if he's okay. Taro smiles and says he got paid today. The guildmaster, Seeing how happy he is, asks if he wants to take the next day off. Taro thanks him and leaves. The two of them watch him as he walks away. Next scene, new place. Taro has been shopping. He sees a familiar place. It's the blacksmith shop he visited before. He knocks to see if anyone's there. No answer and no. Customers around. He opens the door, calling out. The dwarf is still forging and asks who's there. Seeing it was a human kid, he asked if it was the same boy. Taro said, yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the gift. But the dwarf replied, wait, your idea worked, but it made the iron brittle. Now what? Taro tells him to relax, that he's squeezing too tight. The dwarf lets go and apologizes. He's been trying a lot of things, making it harder but brittle. Also more flaky. Taro thinks this isn't working. It's called annealing. Tempering and annealing are like best friends. If you strike the iron at a lower temperature after tempering it, it becomes more resilient. During tempering, they apply a special clay called waikiba to cool it quickly and harden it. Or at least that's what TV says. Taro says that if he does that, the weapon should be much better. The dwarf smiles. He thanks him and asks him to call him master. Taro replies, no, that's too much. I just shared what I knew. And boom, Taro unlocks another skill, Eyes of Truth. The dwarf is excited. He says he's going to forge something epic with that information and asks to meet in a month. Taro bows. He thanks him and leaves. Next scene, the city's shopping district is packed, lots of people shopping. Taro is excited to try out his new skill, using the Eyes of Truth. He's amazed. He can see and identify anything. Humans, not yet, because he doesn't have it fully unlocked. But it's very useful. Taro picks up an orange, wondering if this is how he sees things. Everything has a description. He plans to avoid fake items thanks to this skill. Find only good potions. Same with the other items he's looking for. Time flies by, and people are watching him. He's carrying a mountain of stuff in a box. It seems he spent all his money, and is now broke. 2 months have passed since he became an adventurer. Most adventurers see him as the ultimate multi-asking kid. Basically, he's the guild's errand boy. He's usually stuck with easy quests, and not many see him as a real adventurer. His rank is still G, and he ranked up to F thanks to quests outside the city, but the guild thinks his muscles still need more work. One day, a guy calls him to the guild's courtyard. There, a group of people is practicing sword skills. An old man named Bay says Taro looks skinnier than last time and for that reason, he can join the training squad. He hands a sword to our hero, who's worried because he hasn't trained in 2 months. Then Baze lunges at Taro, telling him to show what he's got. Taro grips the sword tightly as he attacks. Ace tells him he's wasting too much energy. He guides him and tells him to get ready. He lands a clean hit and tells him he let his guard down. But oh well, he has potential. If he masters the basics, he'll be a beast, but first they need to fix his stats. Since then, his schedule has been packed. In the morning, he cleans the guild. Plus, he has quest duties. In the afternoon, it's martial arts time. With all that, the boy ends up exhausted every day. He thinks this is fine, but there must be a faster way. But for now, it's time to sleep. Then he uses his purification power. Suddenly an idea strikes him. Maybe he can clean the guild faster with that power. For now, he'll try it in his room. He activates his power and unleashes it on the floor. A blue glow fills the room and everything is left sparkling. It turns out the walls were actually white. Shifting focus, he decides he should try to clean the entire guild. Then he opens his eyes. He looks around and wonders if anything has changed. But then he notices something. A-boy drops to the floor like a sack of potatoes. The guild master runs in asking if he did that. The boy is completely passed out on the floor. A mysterious light had filled the guild hall. The hero apologizes and the guildmaster asks if he's okay, probably having exhausted his mana, and he tells him not to waste his power on small things. He tucks him into bed and tells him to relax today. Our hero insists he's not done yet, but he falls asleep immediately. The next morning, Taro feels refreshed and uses his power. Yesterday, he finally freed up some time, and instead of cleaning, he had more time to practice his swordsmanship. However, the training was mainly basic drills. It's worth noting he was the youngest and smallest among the others, and some even had their own talents and sword styles. With that, his rise in the adventurer world at that age was truly a great rarity. Then Nai says that, as you know, there's a reason they don't hand out high ranks to everyone, as they need to ensure the quality of their adventurers. After all, it's a profession full of risks, and they can't give a rank to someone who doesn't deserve it, because otherwise it could have consequences. Meanwhile, our boy continued to train with his sword, thinking he was really lucky. Scene change. Taro returned once more to the dwarf's workshop. Thanks to him, the dwarf had managed to forge some swords like never before. He also forged a short sword for the boy, asking if he would accept it. Taro, for his part, takes the sword, and thanks him for everything. The dwarf tells him to consider it a gift, just as a way of saying thanks. Using his appraisal skill, Taro is surprised, thinking that 1 gold coin is about 10,000 yen, which means that sword was worth at least 150,000 yen. The dwarf doesn't understand a word he said, but our hero replies that it's nothing and asks if by chance he added any special value to the sword. The dwarf asks if he can tell, as he sometimes has this ability to add bonuses, and since he made it a while ago, it actually ended up with that ability. With that, Taro continues to observe his gear, thinking that people would go crazy for an upgrade like that, wondering what would happen if they saw this. Half a year has passed since he recovered the memories of his past life, and those memories were mainly acquired knowledge. But the advantages can't be ignored. It's like those epic fantasy or isekai stories, where characters use their intelligence to dominate another world, but after some research, he found out it's a double minus-edged sword. Taro has a flashback of a report about a guy who was torn apart by a monster. An adventurer asks if that's the guy who showed up at the office to register, and another says it wasn't very smart to register without backup. Apparently, he wanted to patent something, but a noble stole his idea, and the next day they found his body in the forest. So bringing technology to this place isn't as easy as he thought. Meanwhile, some adventurers were practicing their sword skills. Taro, watching the fight, says it's a basic but effective move. Then it occurs to him. An idea strikes, saying that he'll choose something that seems simple but is hard to copy. A little later, the boy was making something. It turned out to be bread, but it was all burnt. He tried to bake his favorite bread from his past life. Honestly, hygiene in this world is super weird. They don't even wash their hands, and making bread with yeast is a battle. But if it works, he'll make an amazing loaf and will actually be able to eat it. So he uses his purification skill to eliminate all the germs. With that, Taro finally made his yeast. Meanwhile, Nai was watching him, asking what he was doing. He says he's going to make bread with it, using that liquid to prepare soft, white bread with flour. Basically, bread like she's never seen. She asks if it's that fancy white bread the rich people eat, because she wants to make it too. With that, Taro continued preparing his food. With Nai helping him, the boy basically went to a magical world just to bake bread. A little later, he finally finished. It's not super fluffy because he cooked it in a pan. Then Nai says it smells incredible. It smells so good that even the adventurers on the other side of the room are hearing it. In no time, the guildmaster appears, asking if he made bread, to which he replies, yes, it's white and soft. Without missing a beat, the guildmaster starts devouring the bread. Surprised by its taste because it's so different, Nai says it's amazing because he can do anything, even make bread. Scene change, the building next to the Adventurers Guild is a tavern run by the guild and it's a meeting spot for adventurers. When they added his sandwich to the menu, it was a hit within a week, increasing the number of regular customers. And of course, its creation was Taro's, but they made it an exclusive specialty of that guild branch. After all that, Taro could eat good food and have shelter thanks to the guild. It was a win-minus-win for both. In short, he's a fan of bread, but also of rice, though in this world it's no big deal. People treat rice like a weed that's fed to livestock, so that bums him out. With that, his mission as a former Japanese person is to spread the love for rice. He tried to talk to Leo about it, but Leo had never heard of rice, so he decided to serve him bread made with rice flour. When he was about to eat it, Leo seemed unsure. He changed his mind quickly. It's very different from normal bread and super tasty. With that, It was decided they would start selling rice bread. Our boy is excited because he succeeded. A little later, more and more customers started coming. And now they have to think about preparing a main dish with rice. He thought an easy minus to minus seed bowl might work for now. But first, he needs to make plain rice. Since they don't use chopsticks there, they'll see how to solve that. He finally finished his dish, adding meat to the rice. The boy really became a man. He became a chef in this world. With that, the dish was ready and boom! Another hit added to the menu, and tons of adventurers from the guild came just to try that incredible dish. A little later, Taro was relaxing at a table, finishing a new dish. The boy was excited because he couldn't wait to eat. Just as he gets a new skill, he says, "Whoa, what is this?" It turns out he just had to become a culinary guru. And boom, suddenly he knows everything about plants. But Taro isn't exactly jumping for joy. He basically says, "Meh, I don't feel any different." So he gets the idea to check the plants in the garden. He gets there and still nothing. He thinks maybe he should use his appraisal skill to check them. It turns out those plants were just weeds. Taro says, "Okay, I take it back. This skill is actually pretty useful for analyzing things." Then, we're back at the guild. This kid has a cat on his head and says, "Grandpa went out, can I leave the cat with you?" The girl replies, "Sure, we just have to mark in the book that it's safe." And just like that, mission accomplished. Changing the subject. She jokes that the cat spends more time at the guild than at home. She asks for his adventurer tag to log the quest. Taro agrees. "But, do you want to know why?" "What?" The girl replies, "You'll see." She goes to that magic machine from before. She puts Taro's tag in it. And there. Quest completed. She says, "Congratulations. You're now rank F." Taro is thrilled. He thanks her. She asks if he wants a rank F quest. Taro says sure, but first I have to prepare. As he leaves, Nai thinks that Taro forgot to confirm his quest was over. Next scene, Taro is at home. He gears up, ready for his rank F quest. At the quest board, he picks his job. Nai is surprised. Taro replies, "That's true, but I want to try other things first." So Taro is in the forest thinking. This is it. He sets off, using his plant skill. Every plant has a detailed description. His skill is super useful. He says, "Yep, just what I thought." He starts gathering herbs with his bucket. With this skill, he's a gathering machine. A few hours later, he already has all the herbs. But there's something strange about the forest. He thinks maybe he's lost. Maybe he should head back. Then he hears noises in the bushes. Something's there. And bam! A goblin appears. But he says, "Why is that thing here? If it's just one, maybe I have a chance to surprise it. In a fantasy world, I should beat it quickly. Besides, I want to test this sword, but he's trembling like a leaf. He's not sure about this at all. But he keeps moving toward the goblin. Then he makes a noise. The goblin doesn't hear. It lunges at him. Taro manages to block the blow. He's losing to a goblin with a stone axe. His sword goes flying. The goblin keeps chasing him. It almost hits him. But Taro falls. He gets up, grabs his sword, still shaking with fear. The goblin tries to attack him again. But Taro already has his sword ready. The system says his skill is activated, and Taro thinks, "What's happening?" The goblin has no idea what Taro did. He escapes in seconds. He continued gathering herbs and started training with the sword in his free time. He even tried making potions using books. He worked as a blacksmith with the dwarf. Recently, he's been practicing archery. There's a reason he's trying all these things. His garbled text skill has very specific activation rules. When he was reincarnated, he recovered the memories of his past life, and after finally bathing after 2 years, he got the purification skill. Normally, no one gets that dirty in just 2 years, and those people don't usually get a second chance to clean up. He got the eyes of truth for being a pro at spotting what experts do. Something that normally can't be achieved, as it requires years of wisdom and intelligence. Thanks to the knowledge from his past life, he prepared incredible meals and learned about plants. Looking back, none of these epic feats happen overnight in a normal life. In short, he just wants to try everything. hoping to unlock new skills, and being stubborn is part of his nature. Just after Taro lodges an arrow in Mob's cape, almost hitting him, the guy gets furious, but then another person appears. Taro spent his youth wanting to be transported to another world. In fact, he managed to reincarnate. Next scene, Adventurer's Hall. Our boy is also resting there, thinking about how he tried a bunch of things for about a year and a half, but didn't manage to master anything. He brought new snacks to the inn, and they were an instant hit. He even taught the dwarf how to forge a new weapon of kana. A little later, he caught a 1- horned rabbit, his first monster hunt. Although the god he met previously had warned that the path wouldn't be easy, the experience ended up giving him something valuable. In the midst of the chaos, he discovered he had a unique ability to handle multiple tasks efficiently, a rare skill in a world where talent is everything. In that environment, lacking skills meant being a no-hopar with no future. Mastering something without natural talent seemed almost impossible, and he couldn't help but wonder if his friends' jumbled tech skills had something to do with it. He finally stood up with the idea that maybe he was over-analyzing things, so he decided to embark on a gathering quest for herbs. His plan was to head to the northeast forest, although he knew that always visiting the same places could deplete resources. The deeper he went into the forest, the rarer the herbs he found, and the stronger the feeling that monsters were lurking. Mostly they were goblins, although in some areas, there was a risk of running into an ORC. He considered it wise to finish the quest as soon as possible. After a good while, he managed to gather all the necessary herbs, but he still continued to collect a few more plants. In his hands, he held a particularly rare one, a result of his good fortune. Just then, a noise alerted him. Looking to the side, he initially thought it might be a rabbit or a spirit, but upon seeing what it really was, his expression changed completely. A goblin was holding a small mouse, and as the boy was about to draw his sword, the monster spotted him and stared intently. Without warning, the young man started to run. Instantly, the system notified that special skills had been activated for fleeing from a creature. He had acquired presence detection and cloak of invisibility. As he fled, he couldn't believe he had gained skills just by running away. The scene shifted to the Adventurer's Hall, a place full of people. The young man had his camouflage skill activated, and he was amazed at how powerful it was. No one noticed his presence in the middle of the hall. He tried to start a conversation with some people, but failed miserably. He was completely in stealth mode, until he got hit on the head. It was Leo, who reminded him that he should choose a better time to use that skill. Then he understood that some people could still detect him. The scene changed again. Taro continued to gather herbs to finish his quest, when he sensed something and assumed there were monsters nearby. He hid behind a tree to watch cautiously, and this time it was just a horned rabbit. He seized the opportunity to hunt it, knowing its meat was tasty and its belt had value in the market. He used his camouflage skill, approached stealthily, and took it down. The cloak's effect was quite useful. Shortly after, another noise put him on alert. He raised his sword, anticipating another encounter, but he ran into someone who told him to go to the guild immediately. His party was fighting a horde of goblins, about 80 creatures, and they needed reinforcements urgently. Without wasting time, the hero set off, promising that reinforcements would arrive soon. Back at the guild hall, he explained the whole situation. Leo deduced it must be the northern forest and ordered the squad to assemble immediately. A group was already holding back the goblins, so abandoning them was not an option. A rapid deployment of adventurers was organized, divided into 3 squads: red, blue, and green. Taro was assigned the task of relaying messages. The red squad would handle the rescue, green would patrol for goblins, and he would be the messenger. Everyone had to work as a team of professionals, allowing no casualties on their watch. Already in the forest, a warrior was anxious about the shortage of arrows, but his companion reassured him that reinforcements were on their way. It wasn't long before they finally arrived. Another group member asked the blue squad to clear an escape route. Taro delivered some potions, assuring them they could count on him. The other, surprised, asked if they were expensive, but Taro explained that he had prepared them himself. Then, he rushed to inform the blue squad. Upon reaching the next team, he asked if they could secure an escape route. One of the hooded members replied that it would be ideal for the green squad to distract the enemies. Taro became the central hub of communication between teams. But the situation was becoming increasingly critical. There were too many goblins, and the squads were being overwhelmed. Everyone was surrounded and needed more support. Leo took charge of informing the guild and asked Taro to stay calm, assuring him they would take care of it. Mav was also in the heart of the battle, throwing himself right into the horde of goblins. With a single powerful move, Leo eliminated several of them. A little goblin tried to ambush him, but a companion intervened just in time. Leo thanked him for the help and continued to advance. Mav watches the action unfold, and also charges at some goblins. The heroes are impressed by everyone's skills, but there's no time to get distracted. He has to get back to the guild. In the next scene, he finally arrives. The adventurers murmur excitedly, asking for details. Taro says the guild master is handling it and that they're fine. Then, he collapses to the floor like a sack of potatoes. He wakes up later, relieved that everyone is safe. A-Guy comments that the potions were key and that thanks to them, they fought without fear. Taro is glad everyone is okay. In the end, he did his part, but he feels bad about his lack of combat skills. He feels like he's just someone with a sword, but that's not enough. He wants to test his skills against the goblins, but they are always in groups, so facing them alone is risky. Teaming up would be best, but no one wants to team up with him. So he decides to go back to training tomorrow. In the next scene, in a new location, a woman appears in the adventurers hall. Days have passed since the battle against the goblins. Taro is on a new mission. A staff member named Marco thanks him for his effort and says he'll take care of the paperwork. Taro asked about Nai. Marco says her parents suddenly arrived for a meeting. It sounds serious because the adventurers are looking for her. Another guy reacts with surprise. The adventurers are called over and told there's a marriage proposal for Nai. Everyone is shocked. Another adventurer asks Taro if he knew anything, and he says no. Some are disappointed because they thought Nai liked him. Someone taps Taro on the shoulder. Another adventurer tells him to follow Nai for a report. Taro replies that he can't because he has a quest. Marco reminds him that he hasn't accepted it yet, so he can go. Taro gets annoyed and thinks he should just do his job quietly, like a ninja on a stealth mission. With no other options, he accepts the mission, even though he doesn't like it. If something goes wrong, it will be his fault. Although the adventurers say they were waiting for his report, he doesn't believe them. The scene changes and the hero watches the carriage, thinking that Nai must be nearby. Suddenly, he finds her sitting next to a guy. He thinks that must be the rumored candidate. The guy looks smart, which isn't a good sign for the guild. Still, he needs to observe more to be sure. Time passes and Taro follows them, believing he's solved the case. Because the distance between them seems suspicious. An old man approaches him and asks if he's okay after a fall, but Taro tells him to be quiet. When he looks again, the two have disappeared. He thinks he needs to find out what's going on between them. In the next scene, the guy says he wants to spend his life with Nai and asks if he can marry her. But it's all a product of Taro's imagination, who thinks I can't get married and wonders how he'll tell this to the guild. At that moment, Nai appears and asks him why he's snooping around. Taro asks who that guy is. She says she needed information and that he wasn't helping. Besides, her parents are there and ask if he wants to eat with them. The scene changes to a restaurant. Taro is with Nai and her family. He asks if the arranged marriage is true. There's a flashback with Nai's mother appearing at the guild. Nai is surprised by the visit. As they talk, a guy listens in. The mother tells her that if she's single, she should consider an arranged marriage. The scene returns to the present. Her father comments that if he's so worried, maybe he should marry her in the future. Taro thinks they are a close-minded, knit family and he feels concerned. He wonders if his parents from his past life are okay. He thinks they must be shocked by his mysterious death, especially after he got into an elite university. He thinks he only brought them trouble. Then, Nai asks if he's okay, and he says yes. He's determined to work hard in this world to make his parents proud. A day passes after all that chaos. The hero is in the guild, motionless like a statue. The adventurers are nervous, all kneeling before him. In a corner is the guild master. very nervous. Taro says he has quests and wants to leave the conversation. Leo comments that they were victims too and that it's okay to be angry. Using a girl to spy on a guild employee's life is low. But the girl says it was no big deal and forgave them. Hearing that, the guild members were in shock because she was a true angel. Shortly after, the guild master smiled and said they were lucky because they would be doing a month of volunteer quests. The volunteer quests were very boring, also tough and very dirty. They didn't pay well, and this particular group was even more difficult. The next one was on a mountain, and the mission was to repair the city walls. That meant carrying stones, moving them, and stacking them. It was all hard labor. And with low pay, it was one of the least popular tasks. When Taro was ranked G, he couldn't handle it. But now it was different because this time the reward wasn't so bad. So he joined the group and went to the site. There were already a lot of people breaking stones there. For some reason, Taro was also among them. The guys thought he wasn't there to carry or stack stones, that he really just wanted to see what was happening. Then an old man appeared, telling them to start soon. But first, he had to teach the basics because the new guys had to listen. He asked if they saw that stone over there. The first thing was to find its center and then split it with all their strength. Boom! The stone split in two. The old man told them to try it too. That sometimes those stones hid interesting things in to tell him if they found anything. If they discovered something epic, he would also get a reward. Taro thought he should give it a try. He began to use his true sight power on the nearby rocks. All he saw was cool. But then his eyes widened as he glanced sideways. Something shiny caught his attention. He wondered what it was. The old man appeared again and said those piles were just mining waste and had no importance. But the hero wanted to check anyway and broke the stone. Boom! It started to glow. The old man looked at him with his mouth open. The hero had found mithril ore, leaving the bald man completely shocked. He shouted for everyone to stop because they had found mithril. With that, Taro unlocked a new skill called precision. Days passed, and the boy was still trying to understand that precision skill. It probably had to do with aiming. So he started practicing with a bow and arrow, thinking that skill would be very useful. The scene changed, and a guy offered 100 gold coins for the mithril. He asked what he would do with all that money. Taro thought he owed his life to the guild members. So that day, the food and drinks were on him. Then he looked at Nai to see if she had any ideas on what to do with the leftover money. She suggested donating part of it to the orphanage, leaving him surprised by her idea. The scene changed, and the town was in an uproar because a boy had found mithril out of nowhere. Meanwhile, some adventurers from the guild were talking. A brown minus-haired guy said he had heard that Taro had defeated some bandits. But Taro said that was just a rumor and wondered how to handle such comments. Then the guy told him not to worry, that he had already stopped those rumors for him. Hearing that, Taro was thrilled, and thanked them for their support. He thought he was grateful but had to put an end to those rumors. Later, Taro was walking through the town with his invisibility skill, when he heard something and wondered what it was. It turned out to be a play where an actor was demanding money. Taro thought that this town was a bit boring. He heard his name and became interested. He started running to see what it was. On the other side, a play showed a boy defeating goblins and finding a mithril stone, wondering what to do with the money and planning to donate it to the orphanage. Taro watched, surprised, realizing they were talking about him. The puppet shows were now about local legends. They used to be rituals, but now they were just for fun. The rumors about Taro were becoming the town's entertainment, and as they say, rumors spread fast. He realized that would only fuel the gossip. It would attract too much attention, which could be problematic, so he wanted to avoid it. In the midst of all this chaos, he needed to stay calm because he had no other choice. It was risky, but maybe he had to do it all. He had a fondness for puppets, but he had to fight entertainment with entertainment. In the next scene, Nai was thinking about him. The boy asked what was wrong. She was wondering why he was carrying so much wood, drawing attention. Taro said he was planning a game for his future. Nai asked if it was a game for his life. He nodded, saying the town was obsessed with him, so he was creating a game to distract them. Nai said he was trying to change the focus, but making something everyone would love overnight was difficult. But The boy told her to calm down, saying he had a plan, that it was nothing shady, so there was no problem. In the next scene, the boy finally finished his game and decided to call it JA's. To make that game, he started by cutting out a square board and drew lines until it was 8x8. He painted one side of the pieces black and the other white, like a little yin and yang. Game complete. Nai, curious, asked him how to play. In this game, you flip the opponent's pieces by surrounding them with yours, and whoever has more pieces at the end wins. When you place a piece, it must be in a spot where you can trap the opponent's color and flip it. All the pieces that get trapped in a horizontal, vertical, or even diagonal line, Ninja Minus style. Once you capture the corners, you practically dominate the game. The excited girl wants to try it, and Taro accepts the challenge. Thus begins the first epic showdown. Nai is determined not to lose and makes her move. Time flies by and Black gets 4 wins while White only has 1. The battle continues. Black accumulating 23 wins and White 18. The protagonist realizes he's not so bad at this. Finally, the battle ends with Black winning with 40 pieces. Nai is thrilled because she finally got a victory, and is surprised she beat the game's creator. The protagonist thinks it's time for a rematch, and that he's not going to lose again. Nai, fired up, thinks he still doesn't understand her true power. Meanwhile, Taro gets serious and makes his move. Time passes again. Nai comments it was close and that for a simple game, it's a lot of fun. Changing the subject, she wonders if he let her win the first game. The protagonist tries to dodge it, but she doesn't believe him. Still, the game is incredible, and she's sure everyone will love it. Taro feels quite satisfied hearing that, but there's a big question about who can claim authorship and register it with the Merchants Guild. So far, the recipes from his past life were just food, so there was no need to register them. Some tried to copy them, but no one surpassed the original at the Guild's restaurant. Thanks to the Guild's good reputation, no one dared to copy it openly. But with this game, it was a totally different story. Seeing the situation, Nai asks what his plan is. He thinks of using the Guild's name, but if he registers it, they'll need a creator's name. He could use Leo's, but he's too famous, and that would raise suspicion. The ideal would be someone trustworthy with good backing. He asks the girl if she knows anyone like that. She becomes thoughtful. Then she has an idea and says there is someone, and what's more, he's quite close to him. The protagonist is surprised, but then he doesn't get it. The scene changes. The boy calls Mav. He's an exemplary guy who donates to the orphanage and is one of the top adventurers in the guild. Nai comments that Mav will continue to donate part of his income to the orphanage and that as part of his team, he's willing to take on long minus-term missions. So Mav is the perfect candidate for this job. That's why he gets the vote of confidence. The scene shifts to the guildmaster's room. Mav says the orphanage can benefit from his extra income and that he's also eager to level up with his team. He asks if Taro is sure, because it might be fine now, but if the board game becomes popular, things could get complicated. The protagonist is calm. Mav thinks it sounds like a win-minus-win situation. Changing the subject, the boy asks if they are ready to begin. Mav responds affirmatively. They finally close the deal. The scene changes to Taro observing his board. He thinks that for the general public, a simple board is enough. But for collectors and nobles, it should be something special. So he makes limited editions with elegant boards and carved legs, plus shoji sets. It seems his precision skill has been underestimated and will be very useful. It's incredibly precise, which makes measurements easy. It also improves his coordination like a pro. With that, he could easily advance to become a master carpenter. After a while, the boy finally finishes his epic construction. Taro really put his all into this one. Nai observes the masterpiece and is shocked, saying it's a genuine piece of art. Taro simply nods and says thanks. But something still worries me. Cool things don't sell themselves. He soon observes some adventurers, and thinks the time has come, and that he's counting on them. A unique and special mission. Then a guy with a headband asks what that game is, because he thinks it's cool. It's a completely new game, different from anything he's played before. Another approaches and asks if he can try, and the first one says yes, but to be careful because the girl is a beast at playing. The two sit down and begin their game. Other adventurers also start looking at the board, increasing interest in the game. Seeing the scene, Taro thinks they have to keep this momentum going. The shill customer strategy hooked the adventurers, and several sales were prepared so they could get the board right away. Thus, in just a few hours, the shop was filled with people lining up to play. The line even extended outside. Following Leo's advice to avoid annoying complaints from the feudal lord, the game had to be promoted discreetly. The limited editions had already been sent as gifts. Distribution rights were also secured with merchants who worked with the Adventurers Guild. Besides, the city of Seiyai was a bit boring, so the game quickly became popular among children. At that moment, the boy realizes something. Seeing the chaos, he wonders what's happening. He tends to dive right into the mess. Two people were playing some kind of game, especially the one belonging to the main boy. Everyone was excited about the duel between the two masters. Taro thinks the signal was better than he expected and that the functioning of his board was a great success. The scene changes with someone telling Mauve that the boards are selling like crazy and that both the cheap and expensive ones are flying off the shelves. The boy replies that it's great, but he left all business matters to the guild, so they should talk to them. The man says he understands and leaves happily. Mauve asks Taro if he knew all this. He replies that he had already talked about increasing production with the guildmaster. Mauve says he understands, and that with things going so well, maybe he can compete in the big city with his team, and for that, he owes him one. The two say goodbye. 15 days pass, and the Silver Sword Squadron completes all high-minus rank C missions and gets promoted to rank B. The scene changes to Taro relaxing with Leo. The man was observing the hero. The main boy seems to be worried about something. The guy kept staring at him intently. In the midst of it all, Taro thinks he looks very annoyed. Shortly after, the man slams the table. Taro doesn't understand anything that's happening. Leo says it's fine that adventurers from other places are coming, but their behavior is a disaster. They are causing trouble with the locals, which is damaging the guild's reputation, and their main adventurers are rank C. In short, compared to Mauve's team, they have a lot of room for improvement. Internal security is getting worse, and they requested more troops from the feudal lord. But it's not enough. Instead, they are being sent to deal with bandits and keep crime under control. Meanwhile, Taro thinks that Leo's complaints never end. The man was quite frustrated. Then, Leo mentions that the commission from the game Taro created is what's keeping them afloat, but there's still a problem. There's a big order from the capital, according to the merchants, and they also want 10 of his limited edition boards. Taro is surprised and thinks it's not strange, as the capital is on another level. Leo adds that on top of that, they want him to accompany the merchant caravan, which leaves the boy even more shocked by what he hears. The guild master says they want him to stay there for a month as a game instructor, but Taro argues that the rules are very easy and that being a kid, he can't do it. However, Leo tells him that if they insist, there's no way around it, that he may not like drawing attention. But nobody in the capital knows him. Besides, it's not bad to see the capital while he's still young. With that, the boy doesn't seem to have many options. Changing the subject, Leo informs him that from that day on, he is promoted to rank E. Then he stands up saying that he needs to level up for the sake of the guild's balance. And honestly, that's a big win for the boy. Observing the scene, Taro doesn't know whether to be excited or not. As he leaves, Leo tells him he's leaving the rest in his hands until the big day. The scene changes. Our hero is still gathering herbs. He can't forget the boring work of preparing all those boards. Night finally falls. The scene changes to the Adventurers' Hall. Some people are still playing enthusiastically. In the Middle Ages, this is apparently the most popular thing. Taro is still busy inside the hall. The adventurers see the boy picking up some papers and are surprised, commenting that even children work there, and that he observes quests like a pro while they wonder since when the guild has been babysitting. Meanwhile, Taro thinks that these guys are the rude adventurers Leo warned him about. Besides being loud, they're quite a spectacle. A red-haired guy comments that having a kid like him makes them look bad. But then, someone slams the table. It's the guy with the headband. Approaches the other, saying that the boy they are criticizing is a high-level adventurer, rank E, just like them. Hearing that, other guild members back him up. The boy is a rank E adventurer. That's impressive, but the other guy confirms it's true, though he doesn't know how things work where he comes from. There, the adventurers are on another level. Hearing this, some adventurers admit they shouldn't have been so harsh. Meanwhile, to other adventurers just watch the chaos unfold. They leave apologizing for the drama. Meanwhile, Taro thinks that Leo and the other instructor are rank A. Then someone calls him. A group of adventurers checks if he's okay and tells him not to worry, that he's a legend. Taro thanks them and says it didn't affect him. The adventurers are relieved. Taro values these bonds and feels grateful to his team. A day passes after the chaos. The scene returns to the Adventurers Guild. Taro checks quests on the board. The guild is crowded as usual. Nai is handing out quests to people. Meanwhile, a guy approaches the board. The protagonist remains silent. The guy comes up from behind, asking what he's doing. It turns out he's been missing from home without notice. Turning around, the boy is surprised. A man was watching him. The guy demands a quick answer, ordering him not to ignore him, and is about to hit the protagonist. But the boy activates his skills and dodges the blow like a ninja. In seconds, he disappears. The man doesn't understand what happened, and asks who allowed him to dodge that blow. The protagonist says nothing. The man charges again. Taro dodges and reappears in front of him. The guy stumbles and falls flat on his face like a clown. Nai seems confused by the chaos. The adventurers intervene, reminding them that violence is not allowed there. But the man is still furious and asks where Taro lies now, saying he should pack up and go home. Taro says he's not going back. The man gets angry and asks who he thinks he is, missing another punch. In the midst of this, Taro thinks that this guy hasn't changed at all. He really wants to kick him. But violence is not allowed in the guild. He suggests they talk outside, away from the crowd. Upon leaving, Nai worries if the boy will be okay. The next scene, outside the guild, a man asks about the mithril money, saying it should all go to his father. Taro thinks that as expected, the rumor reached the village and it's about a large sum of money. The guy, after disappearing for so long, now wants to act like a father, saying he has no money. Still, he doesn't give up. Taro wonders when he'll realize it's all useless. Then his father says, "How can you forget everything I did for you?" That the boy remembers only being beaten every day. The father tries to justify it, saying they were just teaching him discipline. Then some guys arrive, asking if he's gotten the money from his son yet. Seeing this, the protagonist wonders if this is the moment he should call out his father. It turns out his father owes them money and they're in trouble if he doesn't pay. Seeing the mess, Taro realizes they want him to cover his father's debt, and the guy says he'll pay right now. Taro asks if they have the loan contract. The guy with the scar says yes, and shows it. But Taro says that's not a contract. It's just a note from the boss to get as much money as possible. In short, no contract, no payment. And he doesn't even consider that guy his father, so even less so. Hearing this, his father gets furious and calls him a liar. At that moment, another person appears, saying it's rude to make a scene in front of other customers. That if they mess with Taro, the whole town will come after them. So they better calm down if they want to be safe. Another says that Taro has been very generous, even donating leftover money to the orphanage. That all this was to be expected from a former adventurer and host. Right after, the extra guy leaves. Taro tells him to wait a moment. The guy with the scar asks what's wrong now. Taro says that even though it's all settled, he wants to apologize for his father's troubles. He gives him a gold coin and tells him to keep it. The one with the scar is confused. They don't waste time and leave. The protagonist has resolved everything and apologizes for the drama. Meanwhile, a man with a beard drinks beer. In the next scene, elsewhere, Taro is still gathering herbs. Someone is hiding behind him. He thinks, why do bad things always happen to me? The guy appears. Taro is ready. He draws his sword in an instant. The scene rudens a bit. Taro had seen a shadow next to a tree. The guy observes his sword and thinks it's a special blade. Without wasting time, he lunges and demands the sword. Taro thinks, same thing again. In seconds, he draws a magic circle. His skill surrounds everything. He uses it to escape quickly. But surprise, the guy corners him. He says he's not worthy of that sword and orders him to get lost. Taro starts shouting for help, saying someone wants his sword. Some nearby adventurers hear the commotion. Annoyed, they approach, asking what's going on. The bearded guy shoots an arrow, but Taro is ready and blocks it in seconds. Finally, the adventurers arrive and check if Taro is okay. Our hero thinks he can finally continue with his mission. The scene changes to the Adventurers Guild. Taro observes some piles of wood. Thinking he must finish the limited edition boards, he decides to make all the pieces and do it all carefully, and boom, he's done. 10 pieces in total. 10 limited edition boards completed. He's thrilled with his work, but even with skill, producing so many boards so quickly is exhausting. Still, with precision, he gets identical pieces. It's an art he perfected to the last detail. Clearly, without creativity or talent, you can't make great things. That's why he worked so hard in art class to achieve this. Later, he's playing that game with an adventurer. Another guy appears asking how Taro is and if he thinks he can do it. He wants to know how many boards he finished. Our hero says he finally made 10. Paulo is surprised, expecting him to complete at least 6 according to the contract. But he closes it, and changing the subject, asks if he wants to join him. Then another guy appears and tells him not to take away his star player. But Paulo insists that Taro's skills could earn him much more money than he's making now. However, the guild master warns that if Taro leaves, he'll cut ties with his merchant business. Realizing it's the guild master, Paulo backs down and says he was just kidding. Leo says he'll try to believe him. Then Taro asks if there's any news about the trip to the capital. Then Leo asks Paulo if he's already chosen who Taro will train with. The guy mentions that person seems to be a nobleman. Suggests they use the time to get new clothes and visit a top-tier tailor. Hearing this, Taro is shocked, thinking this is getting crazy and wondering if everything will be alright. The scene changes to outside the guild, and Leo says it's best to leave early because the night is dangerous. Not just because of monsters, there are also rumors of bandits. He asks Taro why he's not wearing his new outfit. Nai, for her part, asks if he got new clothes in. Why he didn't say anything before, because she wanted to see them. Taro replies that those fancy clothes are for meeting nobles, not for a road trip. With that, all preparations are ready. The protagonist gets into a carriage and says he's leaving. Nai wishes him a good trip. With that, they finally depart for another city. Taro thinks the journey is very peaceful. In short, he has the typical fantasy plot in mind, where the merchant caravan gets attacked halfway. But it seems like an unnecessary worry. There's also the fact that he has a rank C adventurer by his side, and Taro says the approaching guy looks suspicious. Basically, he seems to be sizing them up. The girl assumes maybe he's a bandit spy with some appraisal skill. With that, they can't let their guard down. A while later, the scene changes to the rest area. At that moment, they hear a noise. Taro asks what happened and the girl says she has a bad feeling about it. She assumes the bandits changed their target and went after the caravan behind them. According to the soldiers who checked the scene, the bandits disappeared and the carriage was completely destroyed. With that, the hope that the carriage was safe was futile. In short, reality is a harsh beast. A while later, the scene changes to a carriage. A farmer was watching all the traffic. Then the girl calls the protagonist, saying the capital is in sight. The curious boy pokes his head out the window, thinking the length of the city walls is impressive. And the other says that when they get closer, the height will also leave him speechless. With that, they finally reach their destination. As he watches, Taro says he's nervous. As he approaches that enormous gate, the red-haired girl says his jaw dropped. The gate finally opens, revealing the enormous city. Everyone is still impressed with the capital. Taro thinks it feels like another world with races he's never seen. Shortly after, a man says they are heading straight to the merchant's headquarters and asks them to accompany him. And Taro thinks that's right, because he had completely forgotten. With that, time flies by again. The guy in the hat says he will inform the Adventurers Guild about the mission and the bandits just in case. And the merchant replies that's fine, asking them to meet there in the morning in 5 days. Changing the subject, the guy asks what the two of them are going to do, and the girl says she's Taro's bodyguard for now, so she'll stay close. Watching from a distance, Taro says the 5 archers seem to be very used to the capital. They often do these kinds of missions, so it's no big deal. The bodyguard says this is just the beginning. And besides, the place is huge, so if they get lost, use the Imperial Castle's tower as a reference. Once, she wandered for half a day looking for the Adventurers Guild headquarters before finding that blessed tower. Hearing this, Taro wonders if she's serious or just joking. In the next scene, the camera cuts to a building. Taro observes the place, totally shocked, thinking it's the first time he's had such a nice place with his new body. He wonders if all hotels in this world are so luxurious. But the bodyguard tells him this is just for him, that her usual lodging costs a fifth of that, leaving Taro's jaw on the floor. Changing the subject, she tells him he'll be a game tutor for some noble kids and that if they don't provide a decent place, it would damage their reputation. Taro asks if it's similar to the game he knows, and the girl replies that it probably is. Taro starts to get nervous, but Mina tells him to relax, that it won't last a month and he's always tense. Taro thinks if it's only a month, he can return with them in 5 days. The girl agrees and tells him to take a bath and rest. Later, he actually does. The next day, Taro wakes up and asks if the girl isn't an early riser. They get ready for breakfast, but the food is a total disappointment. Taro thinks he got used to the delicious food he used to make and now he's craving something better. Mina tells him to stop talking about it because it's making her want to eat well again. Scene change. Now they are in another place. The old man says the Garf's guild has a long way to go. When he received the game board sent by Express Horse, he knew it would be a hit. Even his children are fans, and he's sure it will take the capital by storm, so he's been promoting it among the nobles. Taro gets excited hearing that, sure that his master will be too. He's there to learn from Mav, the inventor, and he can't fail. The old man says Taro has a great talent for creating art like those limited edition boards. He's impressed with how young and talented he is. But Taro asks him to keep it a secret that he made those boards. Garf understands and promises not to say anything. If word gets out, the nobles might surround him. So he offers him a limited edition board in exchange for his silence. Taro thinks he didn't miss the opportunity. Another day passes, and Taro is amazed by how much the scenery has changed. Paulo tells him to calm down, that he's also there for the first time, and is just as surprised. Taro looks around, thinking that the girl's calmness gives him a lot of peace. She says she's a bodyguard, that she has to stay calm, that there's nothing to worry about. Taro is surprised and wonders if she's doing it to keep them from panicking. Finally, the carriage arrives at the mansion. Taro is curious to know who owns the place. It has to be the house of a high-minus level noble. Then the other guy says that's not Count Heli No's house, but Duke Valita's mansion, Prime Minister of the kingdom. Taro is in shock, realizing he's been summoned by someone extremely important. Then another person appears. The butler says everyone is present and to follow him. They enter the mansion. Taro activates one of his skills. Looking through the door, he sees a group of people. The butler stops and tells them to wait there. The group is nervous. As they talk, Taro thinks this is a very important presentation. Out of nowhere, his system shows that a special condition has been met, and he obtains the appraisal inhibition skill. Taro is surprised to realize the voice of the world just activated. He's unlocked a new skill. Impressed, thinking that all these people seem to have very high ranks. He figures that if he got appraisal inhibition, it means he was being appraised by many people at the same time. Anyway, he's excited to try this new skill. He's curious to know if it really works. Then, boom, someone appears in the hallway greeting the representative of the Garf's merchants. And the young man present can't ignore it. He had heard it would be a child, but didn't expect the tutor to be so small. And Taro, observing the guy, wonders if that's the big boss of the country. The guy starts scanning the group. Then they ask him to accompany Taro. They say the young man is the main apprentice of the board game's inventor and will be the tutor for a day. First, he'll play 3 games to show his skills. Hearing that, Taro thinks the guy is testing him, that this is childish. That from the big boss's perspective, he asked for a tutor and they sent a kid, so it's not strange that he feels cheated. With no other choice, the boy accepts and decides to take it seriously. And with that, he finally feels good to start the game. From afar, people watch, saying he's quite polite for a commoner's son. Meanwhile, Nai thinks Taro has to show his skills and make him stand out, wondering if the boy can really pull it off. Then, Taro extends his hand and tells the boss to make his move. The showdown begins. The boss stays calm, observing the whole game. The girl says it's crazy because the star apprentice turned the game around. Another noble says the boss's first move was also impressive. With that, the first game ends in the winner, the protagonist. The boss says it's logical, being the star apprentice of the game's creator. It's no surprise he chose him as a tutor. They should reset and go to the second round. In the second round, it's much closer than before. But still, the protagonist takes the victory. The girl is surprised, asking if that move at the beginning was a trap. Still, the boss doesn't stop and asks to start the third game. The other is starting to understand the protagonist's moves. With that, it becomes more balanced. The third game ends in a draw. A little after the match, the protagonist says thanks and observes the place. He wonders if he's taking a game too seriously. Some time passes and Taro thinks taking the corners is fine, but it doesn't mean you're going to win. Thinking that reversing is the best and most fun part. Shortly after, a merchant calls him, saying he couldn't say it before, but it was truly incredible. In all three games, he took the lead early and then turned everything around at the end. He even managed to draw in the last one while letting the boss play more. But Taro says he's exaggerating because the boss learned it from the two games and adapted in the third, which led to the draw, and he's not sure he can win if they played again. Then the guy calls the protagonist, saying he's sorry for testing him before. That game being so simple shows a lot about the player's character, which is great. He hadn't played in a long time, but he became arrogant, and Taro showed him a great skill difference and made him realize his mistake. But Taro says he's very strong, especially in the third game, as his resilience and adaptation were really impressive, and he's not sure he could beat him again. Hearing this, the boss is pleased and thanks him for his words. Changing the subject, he says the reason he called him there instead of Count Contino was for something. In short, it was to evaluate him for someone else. And Taro wonders if he's talking about what he felt when the appraisal started. The boss says he has a rank minus based appraisal skill. With that, he managed to see a glimpse of his skills for a second, but then they disappeared. The next moment, they seemed quite normal. And if he's not mistaken, this is the first time something like this has happened to him. It's truly surprising. Hearing this, Taro nods, realizing that his new skill not only blocks appraisals, but also throws out false information. Then the minister asks if he can slightly disable his epic appraisal block because he wants to introduce him to someone and needs to fully trust him for that. Hearing this, Taro thinks the guy is quite sharp, noticing his skill. Maybe he can learn something about his altered tech skill if he agrees. He then agrees to show his skills, but only to him. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister keeps his eyes on the protagonist. The protagonist, for his part, believes no one was watching him. Finally, he deactivates his skill to hide appraisals, and the minister is amazed by what he sees, saying it's crazy because his basic stats are low, typical for a boy with his skill. But they are greatly boosted by a skill called precision. He's never heard of Eyes of Truth, but it's crazy how it links to his appraisal skill. He also has the presence detection skill. Meanwhile, Taro feels completely exposed. The Prime Minister says the craziest thing is that even with the garbled tech skill, he has leveled up in many professions. Normally, leveling up should increase stats, but that's not happening, which is why Taro's case is a complete mystery. Hearing this, Taro is surprised, wondering if his professional skills leveled up. Then his effort wasn't in vain. Honestly, he'd like more details, but he has to stay calm. After all, it's the Prime Minister. The guy says it's weird because he's checked the garbled text skill before, but he can't figure out what his original skill is. And Taro asks what that means. He says it's a skill that needs an S- class appraisal to detect. Normally, you can guess the skill based on trends and stat growth. But as already said, his skills are leveling up in many professions. And that goes beyond appraisal skills. If it were just martial arts, professions like Holy Knight or Hero would make sense. But he is leveled up in random areas like blacksmithing, carpentry, and even alchemy. In short, he's never heard of a pattern like that. Looking around the place, Taro thinks that even though the Prime Minister is probably the best appraiser in the capital, he can't figure him out. But there's no reason to panic since his skills are leveling up in many fields. He thinks maybe the universe gave him a unique skill, and the only obstacles are the difficult conditions to unlock it, but that he'll always keep trying and stay calm. Then the Prime Minister says he seems to have a rare skill, so nothing shady should be happening. Then Taro remembers that everything that happened was because the Prime Minister promised to evaluate him for someone else. Shortly after, the man tells him he wants him to be a tutor to His Highness the Prince once a week, and on other days, to teach the local nobles. Hearing this, Taro is completely shocked, because he was about to start teaching even royalty. He thinks this is becoming a hobby for the nobles and that he thought it was just fun for the common people. The Prime Minister tells him not to worry because he'll be paid well, but Taro thinks that's definitely not the problem. In the next scene, they are already outside the castle and strolling through the city. Taro, glancing at his bodyguard, thinks she seems to be in a very good mood. Surrounded by nobility, he simply blends in with the environment. Then Mina tells the boy he did a great job, and the protagonist just thanks her. The girl asks if he's going to teach a prince, and Taro can't tell if she's joking or being serious, thinking he'd rather forget it for now. The next scene changes location. A-maid greets the protagonist, says she's going to prepare his meal, and asks if he wants to bathe first. Hearing this, Taro is surprised, thinking it's always a nice welcome, but he still needs to stay calm. He asks Mina what she wants to do because he wants to eat in the room and relax, and the girl says that's fine with her. So Taro asks for the food to be served in the room. The maid does as the protagonist requested, and Mina says Taro looks like a noble now, and he replies that he really is. In the next scene, the food is finally ready and the day is calm. Mina says that since they're heading to the capital, she wants to know if there's anything he wants to do. He has to meet the prince tomorrow, so today he just wants to relax. And Taro thinks that means no sightseeing. He suggests exploring the capital, and she replies that it sounds great. Taro asks Mina if she needs anything. They are strolling through the capital, checking out shops, looking at interesting things. She says she has to buy some souvenirs for her family and her brother, but there's time. Taro is surprised and tells her they have a brother. She replies yes, he's the same age. In short, the brother is a big fan, always dreaming of adventuring like Taro, especially after those puppet shows. He even acts out the scene where Taro dodged debts with copper coins, and Taro thinks that story went viral too. Every time he remembers it, he feels embarrassed. Changing the subject, she says they should go somewhere else, because they're near a shop she wants to visit. They arrive at a shop, and Taro is surprised to see it's a magic item shop. Inside, he's impressed with the incredible items. There's an epic backpack that catches his eye. The shopkeeper says it's a masterpiece by the legendary Jen and costs 10 platinum coins. Taro thinks 1 platinum coin is equivalent to 100 million in his homeland, but that backpack is insane. Mina says she needs a smaller one. Taro asks if she's going to buy it. The keeper says to go upstairs to see more. Upstairs, they are amazed by all the magic items. The keeper just watches them praying they don't start touching everything. Time passes, and Taro asks if they should go home. Finally, they leave, and Taro tells her she was brave. She replies that he loved the second half. Time flies by after all that chaos. The protagonist gets out of a carriage. He looks up and is surprised. Finally, it's time to teach the royal family his epic game. Someone says he's arrived, welcoming the group. Taro is still confused, thinking he already received information about the castle, but the high minus level treatment has him baffled. Then the man tells him to follow. Inside, knights everywhere. The noble tells him his group can wait in the assigned room. So only the protagonist continues, and the man tells him to keep walking. Taro is now in front of a door. There was no turning back, so he just kept going. He thought he was there to teach the epic game. The doors opened, revealing the 5th prince. Taro thought that with those ears, he was an elf, but it wasn't what he had imagined. The prince said Taro was just a child and asked if he could really teach him. Taro replied that he was Mav's best disciple and that he had the skills. The prince commented that he looked younger than him, and Taro thought he was judging him by his appearance, trying to assert dominance. Then, the prince said to begin the lesson. The boy was excited, Finally, they started the game. The prince was impressed by the action. Taro thought crushing him might be cruel, but in the end, he was just a kid, and he was basically dominating. Evidently, the prince was not happy, and flipped the board. He said Taro was too strong, that he never lost, and asked what his trick was. Taro thought there were no tricks, but he couldn't make him cry, so he said he would teach him, but first, he needed to calm down. In short, there were many tricks to that game. He asked if he was ready for intense training, because he was going to teach him the ultimate reversal moves. Afterward, Taro was still training the prince, who asked if he had used that move against the prime minister. He also wanted to say thanks because Taro was a true master. Hearing this, Taro was surprised. The prince said he couldn't believe he had beaten the prime minister at first, but now he understood. Taro watched it all and thought maybe he didn't hold back with the prince, and that this kid had no limits, not even with children. Then, suddenly, the prince called Taro again. He said he wanted to beat the prime minister and asked him to teach him his methods. The protagonist agreed, ready to start. At first, he thought he might fail, but it turned out the boy was very talented, so they started with the reversal training. It was supposed to be weekly, but soon it increased to 3 times a week. With Taro's help, the prince improved rapidly. Time flew by. A butler appeared, apologizing, asking if the carriage outside was the royal carriage. Taro, bewildered, understood nothing. The butler gave no further details. He suddenly knelt, apologizing for everything, pleading to change the suite. The highest level royal presidential suite. He offered him the most luxurious meals and many benefits, including things like bungee jumping in the valley and a jungle tour with rare animals. He told him he could ask for whatever he wanted. Hearing this, Taro felt uncomfortable, thinking this VIP treatment was too much and very awkward. In the next scene, they were elsewhere, and Mina was saying that Taro made them change places. The hostess seemed disappointed, and the protagonist thought he felt bad, but he couldn't refuse that offer. In the following scene, the same guy from before appeared. Taro apologized for asking him to arrange a place near the castle, saying it must have been complicated. But the man replied it was nothing, that he was important for teaching the prince and that the Garf's merchants had sorted everything out. Hearing this, Taro thought that Zeeb had a lot of talent, thanking him for all he did. But then something occurred to the protagonist. There was an awkward silence. They stared at each other. The man said he didn't remember telling him his name before. The boy replied by asking if Zeeb was really his name. Later, the scene changed to another game of J's. The prince was basically having a rematch against the prime minister. A group of nobles watched this epic duel. The prime minister watched the whole game. Then he smiled. The young prince remained as calm as ice. Then the prime minister said he surrendered. So the prince took the victory. All that study of the game had paid off. Afterward, the trio chatted after the match. The minister said that thanks to Taro's help last month, the prince had become much stronger. The prince agreed, saying it was all thanks to his hero. Changing the subject, he asked if he could call him by his name. Taro agreed, saying, "Yes, your highness." The prince said to call him Frey. Bowing, the protagonist replied that he understood. Frey said to stop using the word prince. The boy thought that would be a bit complicated. Then a system message appeared for Taro. He got a new skill, spirit magic. He also got the authority skill for having befriended royalty. And Taro thought he had just gotten to new skills at once. Then the minister told him they needed to talk for a moment about the pandemic, about the investigation into the garbled text skill they mentioned before. Time passed, and Taro's work as a tutor in the capital came to an end. So he was free from those intense gaming days and could finally relax a bit. But even in this world, spirit magic was the ultimate skill. Besides, his fire magic was as small as a lighter. His water magic was barely enough to not worry about having drinking water. They are all at the level of everyday magic. But on the other hand, he can only use purification magic. He thinks that if he keeps using his skills, maybe he'll level up. But the real question is his authority skill. And he wonders if it's of any use to someone ordinary like him. He even made a royal child cry the other day. Then someone calls him. His bodyguard asks if he's ready. The boy replies yes. It's time to buy all the souvenirs. Time passes, and Zeeb thanks Taro for everything. It's a big thank you from Prince Frey and the Prime Minister. With a bag of coins in hand, Taro whispers that it feels a bit light, but the girl says she knows nothing. Then Zeeb tells him the prince thinks it's weird to say thanks with money, but to accept it anyway. Suddenly both are surprised because they've just received 20 platinum coins. Later, the boy returns to the artifact shop from before. He enters and the clerk greets him, welcoming him. But now the duo has a totally different vibe. The clerk thinks, are they here to cause chaos again? But the protagonist steps aside and says he wants to buy the backpack. The clerk reminds him it costs 10 platinum coins. Taro confidently takes out his bag. He's going to buy it without a doubt. The clerk watches him. The other employee takes the key. He starts to open the case, thinking that some people say they'll buy and then try to steal it after decapitating the magic. Maybe these guys are the same. But Taro says no, he has the coin here. He's paying now. The clerks are speechless. The hero says he also wants that small magic storage bag. He asks if he can get a discount. Mina says she wasn't planning on buying that. But Taro insists it's a special bonus. She says it's 1 platinum coin, that she can't accept it. But Taro says she worked hard with him for a month and to let him do this. Mina has no other choice. Just then, the system announces he's obtained the magic storage skill. The boy sighs, and Mina comments that maybe they shouldn't have accepted that. But the hero clarifies that it's not because of that. Later, they leave the shop, strolling through the capital. Now that Taro has magic storage, he's on a shopping spree until the money runs out. Basically, he visits all the shops, tries all sorts of things. The boy is spending everything. Then Mina tells him maybe they've spent too much, and the boy thinks it's a unique opportunity to buy everything he needs. Then someone calls him, saying they feel otherworldly vibes coming from him. The hero is impressed by that. Time passes and it's finally time to return to Seiyai. There's a lot to think about now that they're back on the road. Plus, there's what Garf has mentioned before. He talked about setting up a manufacturing base for that game in the royal capital as well. Honestly, it's tempting, but sales in Seiyai are also important. They could make it a Lux limited edition of the board in the capital with top -tier artisans. The guy says the capital's nobles would definitely want limited editions. So, it's decided. In the next scene, the guy asks if he's sure about handing over that valuable item. Taro thinks his bodyguard rejected it, saying she'd rather offer it at a discount after taking care of him during the trip. The guy says he was interested, but a 60% discount is crazy, that he'd be happy with 30%. But Taro replies it's fine, he just hopes to have a good relationship with him, with Mauve, and with the developer. With that, they finally leave the capital, and the old man thinks the protagonist doesn't have a shred of greed. Meanwhile, the boy hopes it was a good thank you, and the merchant says that sales of JAs will always be in the capable hands of the Garf's merchants. Hearing this, the hero replies, "Thanks. It was great working with you two." He feels it was a long journey, but it was actually very short, so it's goodbye to the capital. He wonders how everyone is doing inside and can't wait to see them again. The traveler comments that magic storage is incredible, because it allows you to fit all that cargo into a small bag. It helped reduce transportation costs. Meanwhile, Taro remembers his journey, thinking he's living his dream life in another world. Or at least that's the plan. The words of that woman still bother me. Then his bodyguard tells him to wake up, that bandits are back on the roads. Taro asks if they are the same bandits they encountered before. The details are vague, but in the end, it was no big deal, and the hero thinks it's because he has an imposing appearance. Then Mina says she has to go to the guild, saying goodbye to the group, with a wave of her hand. Right after, the others were saying they had to talk about those limited edition JA's boards at the office. Then Nai appeared, all excited to see him, throwing a million questions at him, but Taro told her to calm down. They'd tell her everything when they got back to the guild. The girl got a little overexcited, but she was glad he was okay, so she left. The boy thought nothing had changed in Seiyai, his favorite city. And yes, his return was a total mess. They were dealing with the limited edition boards made by capital artisans. But Paulo was telling him that Taro should make his own masterpiece and keep it secret with a fake name. Of the 5 original pieces, 3 went to Prince Frey and the Minister. The other two went to Garfiz. Few knew that these would become the legendary JA's boards. Time passed and they were back at the guild. Taro was choosing his next mission, going straight to the counter. The girl told him this was a goblin extermination mission. Besides, the boy finally reached Tranqué excited. The hero said of course. I asked if he was okay going alone. He felt a bit nervous but had to get used to it. I sensed it, and told him not to overdo it. The scene changed to the forest, and Taro thought this place was scary. He always used to run away, but now the game was different. Then he activated his presence detection skill. Deep in the forest, he saw the goblins. The boy moved. Perched on a tree, he thought it was just two. A simple surprise attack. He aimed with his bow and arrow. He fired the first shot. He hit one monster directly. In seconds, he drew his sword. He charged at the last monster and defeated it like a boss. Taro felt good, mission accomplished. But wait, more monsters appeared. In the next scene, Taro had already eliminated all the goblins, collecting the loot. But then he heard a noise behind him. More goblins appeared, launching a barrage of attacks. He took a hit. He fell to the ground, feeling dizzy. He thought he wasn't ready for this solo thing. He wondered if he should escape, but there had to be another way. Was it now or never? No time to think. Suddenly letters appeared on his forehead. He used a skill. Out of nowhere, the goblins froze. With his sword in hand, Taro saw his chance. He took down the creatures. With his bow, he eliminated one from a distance. Our hero felt relieved, saying that if he hadn't remembered his authority skill, it would have been his end. But somehow, he did it alone. The next scene, the boy was back at the guild. Nai asked what happened to him, that he was all beaten up. And suddenly he fainted. Nai worried, but at least he was safe, and the mission was complete. Then Leo appeared, saying Taro had done it, that he didn't expect him to do so much, that maybe his skills were incredible. Taro said he was just lucky, that in battles, he was still a novice as an adventurer. Leo was silent for a moment, then said that sometimes luck is how adventurers level up, that it's key. Changing the subject, Nai told him she had a new letter for him. Taro took it and saw it was from the Count of Sais. Scene changes to the Count's mansion. The man in front of him asked if he was really Taro. Our boy bowed. Yes, that's me. He thought this guy had a serious air about him, and that he didn't like the situation. Then the man told him there was a reason he was there. Among the capital's high society, everyone knew this guy's name. He was famous for being a J.A.'s master, whatever that meant. Besides, he was close to the fifth prince and the minister, so he thought he should meet him in person. He hoped the boy would agree to be his game coach. Taro was all in. Time passed, and now our hero was teaching him, thinking it was a good start. All quiet for now. Meanwhile, there's action at the guild. Leo was gathering all the adventurers. Taro was also there, curious about the commotion. Nai was explaining that a mission had arrived from the capital for all guilds. Our hero thought it sounded important. She said it was a mission to catch highway bandits. Taro wondered if they were the same ones from the trip to the capital. Soon, the guild master called our hero, saying that his guild was included in the bandit minus hunting mission. First, the escort teams would go out in groups of 3. The squad greeted our hero. Taro said he was back, thinking it was a temporary team, but he had always wanted this. The guy behind him asked if he had presence detection, and he replied yes, wondering how he knew. So they needed a strategy meeting. They would gather information by visiting villages where bandits had been sighted, using Sikai's persuasion skills and Taro's presence detection once they found the place. He would also use his tracking skills to locate their base. And so, the strategy meeting ended smoothly. They would leave the next morning, and it would be their first team mission. 3 days later, it's a rainy night. Someone orders the group to stop and asks who they are. A hooded guy says they got lost chasing monsters and asks if they can stay under a roof from the rain. Taro is also there, whispering that they are very cautious. The other says they won't stay for free, that they can pay. But it doesn't sound very convincing. Still, the guy agrees, but they must stay at the edge of the shed without entering the village. Another guy appears and asks who they are, warning them not to try anything funny. Hearing that voice, the hero can't believe it, because it's his father. He wonders why his father is bringing strangers to this suspicious village. He has a bad feeling about all this. Then he tells his group that his father is there. The other replies, "Is he the one who was a jerk to you?" Taro, with his hood on, says yes. Meanwhile, the father observes the group. His companion comments that the village looks shady. Then the guy comments that the rain isn't stopping, that it's better to rest for today. It's risky with monsters roaming at night. 3 silver coins and it's a deal. Hearing this, the boy thinks he has to close the deal, that there's a lot at stake. And the village's vibe with his father confirms it, that place is the bandits' hideout. The brown Midas-haired boy fears they'll get caught negotiating the price of the shelter. Being generous keeps them happy and off the radar. Hearing that, the two are in shock, and Taro thinks that guy is a professional negotiator. Scene changed to a wagon. The group of heroes is nearby. His companion says his skill detected enemies and they are on the move. The brown Midas-haired boy comments that they were discovered quickly, faster than expected. Changing the subject, he asks if it's really his father, and Taro says there's no doubt. Meanwhile, the man rides in a hurry. Taro thinks he's agitated. Maybe his father sold them out. His companion says either way, they must return to the Sea Kingdom. Taking the main roads is risky. Maybe they can escape the annoying pursuers. The information about the bandits' hideout that the trio discovered was sent by horse to the nearby areas immediately. All that to initiate a massive extermination mission, with the collaboration of all guild branches, and the Seiyai branch was in full preparation. Scene changed to the guild, where Taro pleads to join the mission because his father is involved in this whole mess. He thinks he can't cause any more trouble for everyone. Leo listens to him, remaining silent. But surprisingly, he approves the boy's request. In short, this would be Taro's first major mission, and it was about to begin. On the day of the extermination, before the sun even thought about rising, adventurers began to arrive one by one. The guy with the headband says he'll explain the plan. They will split into 2 squads. One will infiltrate the fortress from behind to rescue hostages, and the rest will assault the village. At the right moment, they will catch the bandits off guard during the search. Thanks to the rain, Taro and his team didn't notice the village was fenced in. Had watchers, like a mini Midas castle. Our hero was assigned to the fortress's all-team because he's a beast with a bow and can go full stealth mode. In the middle of the combat, the boy thinks they have to eliminate the lookout. He quickly draws his bow and arrow. He aims and hits the target. The lookout falls from the tower. The guy with the headband gives the signal to advance. The squad continues to advance towards the fortress. Meanwhile, the protagonist has something on his mind, thinking that even though they are bandits, it's his first time taking someone out. Then his leader says there's no turning back. But for Rose, it's all fine. He must focus on today's mission. Meanwhile, the team starts scaling the fortress wall. Seeing this, our hero uses a skill, his epic storage ability. Meanwhile, the soldiers are fighting, and their leader wonders how they got in so easily, ordering them to get ready. Mina is taking down soldiers. Just then, a fire attack lands near her. There were also mages as reinforcements, and the guy in the hat says that will affect the enemy's morale. In the midst of the chaos, Taro realizes he's out of arrows, so he switches to his earth spirit powers, using them to strike the enemies in front of him. The enemy general says they are outnumbered, ordering his men to surround and take him down. But in a short time, the fortress was theirs. Only the general remained. But he said not to underestimate him, that he was also a beast with a sword. Just then, someone blocks his view. Mina, seizing the moment, lands a kick on the general. And with that, he was out of commission. The duo thanks the protagonist for the support. The boy just shows a smile. And with that, the fortress was completely theirs. Taro's skills began to earn respect, and he started supporting temporary teams. During that time, letters kept arriving from Baronsace inviting him to join. Still, he kept refusing, happy with his adventurer life. Until one day, something unexpected happened. A soldier appeared with orders from the Baron, asking if Taro was there. A bunch of soldiers showed up again at the entrance of the Adventurers Guild, looking for Taro. The adventurers came out, saying he couldn't just enter like that, but the soldier ordered them to step aside. Then the guildmaster appeared, asking what was going on. As Taro's feats became famous, the Viscount of Sais kept sending messengers to make him his vassal. Leo got annoyed with the Viscount's persistence and rejected the offer, saying Taro was key to his guild. So the man sent a messenger directly to the protagonist, tempting him with a luxurious life. Still, the boy kept saying no, but the messenger said he would regret wasting the Viscount's generosity. For Taro, all of this was already quite annoying. The scene returns to the present, with Leo wondering how they got into this mess. The soldiers were still there. The old man said the Viscount had heard about the young adventurer who wouldn't accept his terms and got offended angry. In short, a conflict because an adventurer was more popular than the Viscount in the town. Furthermore, the messenger claimed that Taro had insulted him, which caused all this chaos. Meanwhile, Taro understood nothing, and Leo was saying that the protagonist doesn't insult anyone. That if they heard what he really said, they would know he wasn't that type of person. The man said he understood, but the Viscount still didn't get the situation. Leo replied that he would go talk to the Viscount in person. He simply orders them, telling them to leave before things get worse. The soldier nodded, understood, and they left, watching everything. Taro hoped everything would be resolved, but no. The entire city was stirred up by the drama. Everyone knew the boy was a hero. Total legend vibes, yet there were detractors causing trouble in Sei. Nai told him to calm down, not to stress, but he thought this was much bigger than he imagined. The girl said rumors were just hot air. Another high-ranking adventurer commented that everyone knew he was a good guy. Other adventurers came over to support him. He had to ignore the noise. Hearing all that, the boy just felt grateful for the team's support. The next day, the scene changes. The soldiers are back at the guild's door. The same guy is there, but now he has a message. Taro asks what's happening. Opening the message that Taro is suspected of belonging to a gang of thieves, there's an arrest warrant. He has to go without resistance. The boy is in shock. The guild reacts with fury. Leo is furious. The soldier warns that no one should interfere. The guy with the headband stops Leo, telling him he can't help Taro if he also gets arrested. Finally, the guild master calms down. The soldiers say to hand over the boy without resistance. Our hero, calm as ever, asks Nai for a favor. To take care of his sword while he's away. He thinks he can't drag the guild into this mess. The soldier tells him he's under arrest. As they take him away, Leo tells him not to worry, that they have his back. Time jump. Scene changed to a hall. A monster asks if his father was a thief. The protagonist replies that he lived in the guild as an adventurer, that he found out during a mission. The monster says that his father escaped, that he helped him. The boy replies that he was busy fighting, but that it's okay. He'll keep quiet. Taro's mind is about to explode. He thought, what now? His magic is completely blocked. He can't even store things with magic. But he trusts that Leo and Nai are with him. He can't forget the guild. He trusts them 100%. Scene changed to the royal capital. 2 weeks after the arrest, Garfiz is there. The Prime Minister asks why the sudden visit, that he's busy to be quick. Garfiz says he needs to talk about Taro. The Prime Minister is surprised. What happened to the boy? Later, Garfiz tells him everything. He's still trying to convince the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister says he understands. But to wait, it seems they found a legal loophole. The kingdom. Garfiz is in shock. He asks him not to consult yet. The Prime Minister replies it's not that easy. Things should be resolved locally. Besides, the Viscount is in Marquis or Agora's group. Garfiz concludes that they are against them and also against the king. The Prime Minister nods. They need to gather them for a petition. They will also involve the Queen and Prince Frey. Garfiz is shocked about the prince, so the boy's arrest became a big deal, shaking the nobility. Now it threatens to completely shake the political stage. Scene shifts to another place. The prince has heard everything. This is crazy. Another noble comments that it's crazy to go straight to the king, skipping his brothers. The prince thought it was true, that first he should talk to them and ask for his mother's support. And so, the epic J-Aves game between the prince, the Prime Minister, and Taro's saga became palace gossip. Soon, the king himself intervened to handle the matter. The scene changes to Taro resting in his cell when a soldier appears, saying it's time to eat. But they only give him a sad piece of bread with some suspicious minus-looking mixture. The boy pounces on the food. Starving. But then he stops. Just then, the system activates, granting him a new skill. Boom! Resistance to altered states and recovery from serious illnesses. Taro wonders if that had to do with what the fortune minus teller said about fate. She had mentioned he had an otherworldly aura. She even perceived that hero essence in his fortune. Basically, fate had chosen him to save the world. He used to think those skills were overrated. But maybe now was the time if it really was his destiny. He couldn't stay locked up forever. Almost 3 months pass with Taro locked up. The Viscount appears before the king in a meeting. All smiles, saying it was an honor to be summoned, that he was always in a good mood, which pleased the king. Then the king comments that he surely already knew why he was there. But the Viscount pretends not to understand. The king drops the truth on him. The rumors said he had locked up an innocent boy. Basically, it was a case of false accusations. The Viscount despairs inwardly. The king mentions he has received many appeals to release the boy, which has become a nuisance. The Viscount is speechless, but the guy has nothing to say. The king reminds him it's his jurisdiction to handle it as he pleases. But there's a problem. There have been many protests, so you can't just ignore it. Meanwhile, the Viscount tries to come up with an excuse. He claims he realized the boy's innocence and had already started the release process. He bows, asking for forgiveness 1,000 times for all the chaos he caused. Later, the scandal is resolved and the Viscount ends up exposed. Everyone knew he was lying through his teeth. Finally, Taro's innocence is proven. The king asks if everything is okay with that. The other noble says he was just expressing his concerns, that he had no problem with the Viscount. Shortly after, the prince also thanks his father. And so, Taro's prison saga, which even involved the king, came to an end. Time moves on, and the guild learns that Taro is finally free. The boy finally returns home. Upon entering, the entire guild is in an uproar. Nai gets emotional seeing him. He's still quite beaten down by his prison experience. Then the girl hugs him, welcoming him back. With tears in his eyes, the boy says he's finally home. With the passage of time, the Baron's tyranny is harshly criticized by the Adventurers Guild and the Merchant Guilds. But since the guy is a feudal lord, public reactions are limited. The scene changes to another place where someone is attending to the hero. Our hero is happy to be able to rest in a comfortable bed. Nai is still cheerful because he's back. Leo jokes that if he's already making jokes, then he's fine. The scene changes again, and as time passes, Taro is regaining his strength, training with the sword. Then, the system reappears, granting him a super regeneration skill. Excited, our hero feels he has learned something epic. Thinking of Sei, it's time to go back and settle scores. Scene change, Naya and Leo are with the boy. Leo comments that Taro bought a bunch of things again, all from the capital. Naya is curious about his plan with so many ingredients. He says a new dish for the inn's menu occurred to him while he was in the capital. He wants everyone to try it. Hearing that, the two look skeptical. Taro calls it curry rice, a dish that will blow their minds. Nai wants to know the recipe. Taro says he remembers eating it, but the combination of ingredients is a bit blurry. A month passes, and preparing the curry powder turns out to be crazy. The kitchen is filled with the smell of spices, causing complaints. After sweat, tears, and stuffy noses, he finally does it. The boy has cooked curry in a medieval world, and the dish is a total hit. After talking with the innkeeper, they decided that Taro would finance the inn's renovation to turn it into a special place, specializing in curry. Boom, it opened to the public and was a resounding success. Then Leo mentions that starting from rank G was mandatory. Rules are rules. Taro takes it in stride, saying he couldn't take quests for over 5 months, and that's just a fact. Changing the subject, Nai wonders if it's okay to use only his first name. Taro says he doesn't want to use his father's last name, and he's already famous among nobles and royalty. Besides, he just wants to be Taro. Nai hears this and accepts the decision. The boy remains silent. Shortly after, they talked about the quiet atmosphere of the inn. Leo said they had talked about taking the profits from the place and asked if he really agreed. Taro replied yes, he needed cash for the journey. Hearing that, the guild master became thoughtful and said that if he agreed, they would buy it. But then they mentioned the curry shop, and Leo said that one wasn't for sale, that it was Taro's jewel. They would manage it, but he would retain the rights. They set everything up so he could receive funds from any guild branch. Hearing that, the boy was moved, thanking them deeply. But the leader replied there was no need. He reminded him of what they said the first time they met. With that, they organized a big farewell party at the Adventurers Guild before Taro left. Nai was still emotional, knowing she wouldn't see him again. The next day, it was time for Taro to finally leave. Nai made sure he had everything. Leo asked if he was also saying goodbye to the capital. Leo wished him a safe journey. Nai also said goodbye, saying he was going to crush it. The boy simply bowed, very grateful for everything they did for him. Mina told him to hurry up, and Taro thanked her for escorting him to the capital. Taro had chosen to reincarnate in another world. Then he set off on a new adventure, fate guiding him. The scene changes to the royal capital. Taro had already said goodbye to Mina. Suddenly a blue aura appeared in front of him, saying they meet again. Observing the scene, she said the boy had many questions. Changing the subject, Taro was curious about her prophecy, asking where he should go now. Scene change. Taro is in front of a soldier. The guy sees him. The hero smiles. The soldier says that if the guild vouches for him, it's fine. Welcome to the town of Dank. That place distress outsiders, so nothing weird, and Taro accepts without a problem, just thanks him. The gatekeepers had their style, and the cold stares of the villagers were enough to make anyone nervous. They said the blue minus roof building was the guild. Looking around, he finally found it. At that moment, the receptionist noticed someone entering. Showing his card, Taro said he wanted to establish his activities there. The girl asked him to wait while she checked. Returning the card, she said he was rank G and should look at the quest board. Seeing this, Taro thought it was the most boring welcome he had ever received at an adventurer's guild. He asked where the inn was. She said there was only one, nameless, 2 houses down. Upon arriving, Taro checked the place. A woman appeared, saying this was no place for children. But the boy replied he just needed a room. The woman asked if he had money, and he said he would pay for 10 nights in advance. Seeing the coins, the woman was surprised by the amount, and said his room was a second from the inn. Upon entering, the boy thought at least he had a place now. He noticed the doorknob fell off when he opened the door, so he would have to fix it later. Still, it was fine. This would be his base for a while. The first thing was to take some quests. It was rank G, so he couldn't be picky. Once that was done, he would explore the town with his carpentry skills, his mastery of the J-Aves game, and his precision. Fixing things would be a piece of cake. So, the boy began his mission, fixing a roof. A few minutes later, he was already finished. The receptionist was surprised, asking if he was already done. As he came down the stairs, she watched him, asking if he had carpentry skills because she didn't expect such a professional job. And Taro simply confirmed the mission was complete. She nodded, saying she would handle the paperwork. Scene changed to inside the guild. And the girl mentioned he had already completed several missions, so he qualified for a promotion. He was now rank F. Taro took his card and thanked her. Scene change entering his room, but then a beast man appeared behind him. The hero noticed him. The beast man asked if he was a rookie. His name was Bob, an adventurer, and he asked if the boy was one too. Taro greeted him, saying more or less, and Bob replied that was great, that he couldn't wait to team up. His room was at the end, and he was rank E. Hearing this, Taro said he had just been promoted to rank F. Bob, realizing Taro was new, said if he needed help to ask him for advice. Then he remembered something. Chloe, the receptionist, had mentioned that Taro did the guild repair mission, which saved her a lot of work. Taro nodded, thinking he had finally found a good guy and that tomorrow he would tackle rank F missions with everything he had.